for the future of religious freedom as Muslims look to spread radical Islam and Sharia law as far and wide as possible here in the U.S. And they've got the next generation in tow.
Then I appreciate our sisters, especially those sisters who brought small children so that our children would grow up with this culture, where we remember our martyrs and we're not ashamed of them.
We reached out to Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer for comment, but did not hear back. I'm Steve Chordall.
U.S. stocks are holding steadier following 2 days of punishing swings driven by worries about how high oil prices will go because of the war with Iran. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Choosing a university is an important decision, and visiting campus can make all the difference. Blue Mountain Christian University invites prospective students and families to experience campus at our Spring Preview Day on Wednesday, March 4th. During Preview Day, you'll meet faculty, explore academic programs, learn about scholarships, experience chapel, and see what life is like in a Christ-centered campus community. Learn more and plan your visit at bmc.edu.
Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for listening to American Family Radio. This is Today's Issues. That's the name of this show. On this Wednesday, March the 4th, 2026. Again, thanks for listening to American Family Radio. I'm Tim Wildman, and joining me in studio is Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Brother Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
Wesley Wildman.
All right.
Welcome
ready
back.
To go. Yep.
Second consecutive day.
That's right, 2 days in a row. Yesterday we pointed out that there's a reason I'm only on twice a week. I'm only good for 2 days.
But those are some great 2 days right there. Huh?
Phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a pinch hitter, but when he comes in, you better watch it.
That's right.
It's going
He's liable to knock it over the fence, over the green monster.
All right, Fred Jackson. Good morning, Brother Fred.
Good morning to you guys.
All right, thanks for listening again, everybody. To Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We have got a lot to get to on the program today, Fred. Something called a war going on, isn't there?
There is a war going on, and our Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, gave his latest update this morning. May I just say that I think he has spinach for breakfast, because he comes out like he's ready to box somebody in a ring.
Guns a-blazing.
Yeah. He's a guns a-blazing. Yeah. And the guns were blazing this morning. And he made quite a claim about air superiority, U.S.-Israel air superiority over the country of Iran is just a couple of days away. Cut number 4.
And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities. Just 4 days in. Starting last night and to be completed in a few days, in under a week, the two most powerful air forces in the world will have complete control of Iranian skies, uncontested airspace. It means we will fly all day, all night, day and night, finding, fixing, and finishing the missiles and defense industrial base of the Iranian military, finding and fixing their leaders and their military leaders, flying over Tehran, flying over Iran, flying over their capital, flying over the IRGC, Iranian leaders looking up and seeing only U.S. and Israeli air power every minute of every day until we decide it's over.
Any questions? Think this press conference over.
In fact, I think right now the only threat to the U.S. military and its Air Force comes from the Kuwaitis, who think we're Iranian planes. They
that
did
was
shoot down
friendly fire.
Friendly fire.
Now, thankfully, none of the pilots they ejected.
They ejected and got clear. And no, listen, this is, if you're going to spend trillions of dollars on your military, you might as well be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you this. What President Trump has been doing now, setting aside all the questions about whether we should be doing it, okay? Because I know that listeners, there may be disagreements on all of that. Setting that aside, what President Trump is doing is resetting the global framework here by going ahead and doing what he wants the military to do in Venezuela, okay, in Iran the first time. And I'm not saying Israel wasn't involved, doing what the military is doing in Iran right now. Everyone else is paying attention.
Yes.
All right. If we are able to get a pro-Western government in Iran, not controlled by religious fanatics, okay, the mullahs, etc., he's going to be able to, whether it's himself or those representing the U.S., when you're talking to China, you say, listen, you saw what we did. If you invade Taiwan, if you do this and you do that, we will cut off the oil coming through the Strait of Hormuz and then later on the Strait of Malacca.
This, or they think they're getting the idea?
No, behind the scenes. You don't embarrass them in public. I'm just saying what Trump has done is kind of reset the foreign policy.
World map.
Yeah, and he said, listen, we're going to do what's in our best interest. And if you don't like it, at this point in history, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not saying that's the right thing, the right whatever. But when it comes to countries like in the Middle East and China and Russia, they pay attention to who's got the bigger guns. And right now, the trillions we've spent looks like we may run out of missiles, by golly, but while we got them, there's going to be pain. And I've never really seen anything like what we're doing to Iran.
You sound like Trump. I've never seen it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
It's the greatest.
No, it's the greatest.
Let me just say, I do have some misgivings about what we have done. But
in what way?
Overall, well, I don't want to get stuck there in Iran. This thing needs to get settled. I don't know, in a matter of weeks. This needs to get settled. I don't want to get stuck there in Iran with it falling apart like it did in Iraq. You remember we had to go in because it was a humanitarian disaster, and we had to spend $1 trillion to fix what we broke.
Yes, but in Iraq we had Operation Iraqi Freedom, right?
Uh-huh.
And we put all those ground forces in Kuwait and planned an intentional boots on the ground invasion.
Yeah, but I'm saying we destroyed the ability of the government to run the country. So we basically had to help build that up.
Wesley?
Oh, I don't want to do that in this case. What do you call it? Country building or government building?
Yeah. Nation building.
Nation building. We don't want that. I don't want that, obviously. But back to the clip of Pete Hegseth, it was interesting. One of the other things I listened to the first 5 or 6 minutes or so before I came over here to the show, and there was one line in there that just stood out. He said, and I just want to be clear, this is not intended to be fair.
Is that what he's about? We want to win.
Oh yeah, decisively. And he said, and while they're down, we're going to keep going until it's done.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a situation. This is day 6 or so.
Day 5.
Day 5. Okay. So we have a situation. We're not going to rehash everything we said yesterday, except to say I'm going to rehash everything I said yesterday. So why do we do this? We all do this, don't we?
Oh, there might be new listeners.
Let me just say this one more time, not to repeat myself. But again, you have to step back and say, what's the objective? Okay, the Israelis have the best intelligence agency in the world, Mossad. And that's a subjective opinion. I don't know.
Certainly in that part of the world.
Yeah. Now that's without factoring in Tom Cruise.
Right.
CIA with Tom Cruise.
You need to factor that in.
You're gonna bump up against the Mossad for who's number one.
Right.
but absent Tom Cruise, it's Mossad.
Yeah.
All right. So, no, the Mossad is the CIA of Israel. They understood, and Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, understood that there was an imminent threat. I mean, the nuclear capabilities, and Iran admitted to this in the negotiations that the U.S. conducted with them, trying to prevent what's happening now from happening. They were going full steam ahead with developing nuclear weapons, and they were almost there. And so the Israelis had to say, do we want to wait and see if they'll use it against us, or do we want to preemptively attack them, take out their leadership, and take out and hope that the Americans join us? And the Americans did. And President Trump made the decision to join in an operation against Iran, and we've had our own problems. I mean the U.S. with Iran, and they're the number one exporter of terrorism around the world. That's been mentioned many times. And how many presidents, Democrat and Republican, have all said that we can't allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon because of they will probably use it because they are religious fanatics, and so you can't reason with these people. They only understand strength, and so they think that they're ushering in the 12th Imam. It's very. Ed, you were reading yesterday from some of the people don't know what the beliefs of these ayatollahs and these mullahs are.
This is. I'm going to be very vague. Was very disturbing. I saw this on X and double checked to make sure that this was legitimate. But the Shia views on who you can have relations with.
The Shia Muslims. Different from the Sunni Muslims. Sunni Muslims are the Arabs. The Shia Muslims are
I think roughly speaking,
are the Persians.
There are Shia Arabs.
Some crossovers.
But Shia is a minority, and I do not know what the Sunni views are on this, but it goes all the way down to infants.
The Shia.
And then this is Khomeini's own guidance on this. It was stunning how perverse their practices are and what are allowed. And you are allowed to, when we talk about what Muhammad did, in marrying a 9-year-old, this is what's allowed.
Yeah.
9 years old. And listen, our country is not perfect. We have aborted 50 million babies. God doesn't ignore that. We have our own problems as a country. But the kind of perversion that I was reading is their official policy.
You mean allowed in the Shia religion?
In the Shia religion, I just thought, I am not surprised that God is judging that if God is involved in this. It was very disturbing. It was very dark, and I
can't even talk about it, really.
I can't.
But you were reading about now. These are the people. What you just described were the people who were in charge of Iran that we were dealing with. And so anyway, back to Mossad. The Mossad told Benjamin Netanyahu, we got to go, or either we risk annihilation. Yeah. And they'll be hanging this over our head. That will the Iranians, that they'll strike us if we do anything. So that's the situation that we faced as a country, Israel faced as a country. And so the decision was made, take out the Iranian military and their nuclear capabilities now, and we have to deal with the criticisms here and abroad. I'm talking about it. There are people who don't want to go to war, even if it means we get blown up later. They just don't want to go. And there's a lot of Trump derangement syndrome going on here now too, Fred.
Oh, absolutely. You mentioned the Mossad. We go back a few years to the exploding pagers.
Yes.
You got to be worried if you're an enemy of Israel, because in this case, they tapped into the street cameras.
I've been doing that for years, I think.
Yeah, they tapped into the street cameras
in Iran.
In Tehran.
Yeah, Tehran.
And they knew where these leaders were meeting.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
They were sitting down for a meeting Saturday morning, Tehran time.
And Israel's watching them on the video from the street camera.
This is this is like a movie.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. Beyond what you would think is capable. I'm just going like, go ahead.
Yeah, but you'd have to believe that these leadership in Iran, they have to be reasoning. Mossad's really smart. Do you think they would tap into our street cams and watch us? Yeah.
They did. That's why they're all dead.
That's why they're all dead.
By the way, if I'm not mistaken, those pagers that we're referring to, this was for Hezbollah, wasn't it?
Uh-huh.
In Lebanon.
Those pagers were actually produced by a shell company run by Israelis. Yeah, the Hezbollah ordered the pagers from a shadow company run by Israel. Yeah.
This was the Iranians are just not looking very smart right now.
No,
they're looking. Their decision making. They're. I guess they rolled the dice and said, Israel and the U.S. are not going to attack us.
Yeah.
And it happened. So
one more story here, under the heading "You can run, but you can't hide."
Yeah.
All right. Hegseth had one more announcement this morning. We've heard that in the first few days, the Iranian Navy has been destroyed.
Right.
Well, apparently one of their ships tried to escape the area.
Made a run for it.
Big mistake.
Made it all the way to just off the coast of Sri Lanka. But underneath the waters was a U.S. submarine.
Oh, man.
And the name of the good ship, Iranian ship, was Soleimani.
Oh.
Does that ring any bells for anybody?
That was a terrorist
general. What is it?
General that Trump took out when he was in Iraq. He went from Iran to Iraq, and Trump took him out. What, 7 or 8 years ago?
Well, the good ship Soleimani went to the bottom thanks to a U.S. submarine. Here's Hegseth making that announcement. Cut number 5.
The Iranian Navy rests at the bottom of the Persian Gulf. Combat ineffective, decimated, destroyed, defeated, pick your adjective. In fact, last night, we sunk their prize ship, the Soleimani. Looks like POTUS got him twice.
POTUS being President Trump, President of the United States.
That is the first time since World War II that a submarine using a torpedo has sunk a warship.
I was watching the video of that. It's just stunning footage because that torpedo just lifted the ship out of the water. It looked like it was already on fire. Looked like it had already taken a missile or two.
Listen, the United States and Israel have just wiped out Iranian military forces, and they got hardly nothing left. And anything they do have left, we're about to control all the airspace in the country. It's a pretty big country geographically, and they have no leadership. Is anybody? Have you heard, Wesley? Is anybody speaking for them? The Iranians that you know of? Who's speaking for them, Fred?
Nope.
They do have an ambassador. They do have a representative. I don't know if it's called an ambassador, a representative to the United Nations in New York. Maybe he will speak, but what's happening in it, and you're kind of like President Trump even said, let's play President Trump's clip on that. What was he asked?
Well, he was asked about who do you hope is going to take over? And this is what the president had to say to that question. Cut number 2.
The worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person. Right? Most of the people we had in mind are dead. So, we had some in mind from that group that is dead. And now we have another group. They may be dead also, based on reports. So I guess you have a third wave coming in. Pretty soon we're not going to know anybody.
Well, the question is very serious. Who do you want to take over when this campaign is done? And you heard the president there,
every time they have a meeting, the Americans and the Israelis blow it up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. How are they going to have a meeting to decide who's the leader? Hey, come over to my house.
And
no, I don't think it's a good idea to us to get together anymore.
And that is, like I said, that's my main concern is that we've done such, and when I say we, the U.S. and the Israelis have done such a great job decapitating the leadership there that there won't be anybody to run the country. You want the citizens who have long wanted to
somebody needs to represent them.
you don't want them getting angry at us because people are starving and there's no water and all that kind of stuff.
Right,
We
that's
don't want
true.
to turn Tehran into Gaza.
Yeah.
So,
So that's
not sure what the
that's a
answer
good
is.
point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You're listening to Today's Issues. That's the name of this program on the American Family Radio Network. Well, as far as the military campaign goes, this has been carried out with and it can only be described. Again, I'm talking about not the political implications. I'm talking about just the military campaign. Overwhelming.
Efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, they've done.
What was the old saying in one of the Middle East wars? I don't think it was. Maybe it was the Gulf War, the original, the first one. But the purpose of the military is to kill people and break stuff.
things.
Yeah, break things. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's he fits the description. He meaning Pete Hegseth, the change from Secretary of Defense to the Secretary of War.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's the Secretary of the Department of War. You got that right.
Well, he is no nonsense, and you definitely you're not getting much ambiguity here.
No.
All right, so I mentioned Mossad. Mossad, the Israeli equivalent of our CIA, they've been monitoring the Iranians for years, and they knew exactly where everybody was, what they're doing, what time they had breakfast, over easy or scrambled. This is just, they're watching their movements of scientists to know where the nuclear plants, I say plants.
And why is that, you think?
Because they want to watch where the scientists went, and where the scientists went, quote,
That's
to
where
work,
they need to blow up.
That's what they need to blow up, and so that's why they were watching them.
One of the places we hit had I don't know how many of those drones were located there, but they knew where they were.
Yeah,
and
why would you? Okay, let me ask you this question: for those who oppose this war, and like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens says she stands against Israel. Did you see this?
Yeah, I did not.
I don't know what's happened to her. These are conservative people in many respects, although Megyn Kelly calls herself an independent. I guess that's what Tucker Carlson would call himself too. I'm not sure. But, okay, I'm trying to understand where they're coming from. And of course you have the people on the left, and they're just, many of them are just, whatever Trump's for, I'm against, whatever he's against, I'm for.
Right.
So it's hard to, they don't, you can't hardly, except for John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, the senator. Yeah. And I heard him the other night. He said, "Who could be against this?
Right.
Who could be against this? Guy was the number one exporter of terrorism in the world, a threat to world peace." Talking about the Ayatollah and his minions over there, and we've taken them out. And this is a great day. This is what John Fetterman from Pennsylvania was saying, the senator there. So, but he's few and far between on the Democrat/liberal side of the aisle. Most of them are just like going, Trump's got us involved in a war we didn't ask for.
And he promised not to get us in.
Promised not to get. They're
saying that, the MAGA folks.
That's why some of these people you can't respect because there's no answer to this question. Okay, what would you do if you were in Trump's position and you were faced with the idea of the Iranians having nuclear capabilities, as well as underneath that, all these missiles, these ballistic missiles they were building that Secretary Marco Rubio talked about? I'm just asking you, for those who would criticize President Trump for acting here, I would say, what would you do? The Pope, I heard the Pope comment about this. Of course, you don't look to the Pope for military guidance, but he's saying we need to negotiate. Well, we tried that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We tried. At some point with evil, you can't negotiate any further.
I do know the part that got real quiet in these press conferences.
Yeah.
The one I saw with Pete Hegseth. There was another one I saw with a couple of the other leaders on this issue. And the mic drop or the quiet moment was when they said, "Now, in the event that we didn't do anything, and they did attack us, and then you found out that we did have the information beforehand.
Could have done something.
Could have done something, and we didn't.
And we didn't. Then what would you say?
We would all be in here.
Yeah.
That's the part where there's an awkward quiet silence the 2 times that's been asked.
That's when you come to say, okay, are you saying that President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are lying? And we didn't have intel saying they were about to have a nuclear weapon. Are you saying they're liars?
I think that's what Tucker Carlson would say.
Yeah.
And I think Tucker Carlson would say Iran posed no threat to us. They posed a threat to Israel, and Israel drug us into this.
Yep.
Because they've gone kind of anti-Israel.
I want to talk about that when we get back. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Proverbs 10 and 9. He who walks in integrity walks securely. During the Korean War, a very well-known American general by the name of Dean was captured by the communists. I distinctly remember reading about that in the papers. In a Korean town by the name of Cheongju, General Dean was told by the communists that he had a few minutes in which he could write a farewell note to his family. General Dean figured that he had about 30 minutes at the most before he would be taken out and shot. In such a situation, no man would waste words. General Dean did not waste words. In his letter to his family, very short, he had one sentence which told the whole of his character. The sentence was directed to General Dean's son. Here's what he wrote. Tell Bill the word is integrity. The most important word this father could find to pass along to his son spoke so much. Not popularity or success or fame or happiness, but integrity. How desperately our world needs that, integrity. Integrity means a person is true to himself and to his Maker. Integrity means a person puts truth above all else. He's not willing to sell himself for a few dollars or a cheap thrill. No. He sets his standards high, and they will not come down. A person can afford to lose his position, his income, his prestige. These things are dispensable. They can be replaced, but not his integrity. A person can live with truth, though it be difficult and trying. But no person can live with a lie and remain a person in the highest and truest sense of the word. We're tempted today to compromise our values, to call a little wrong nearly right. But one cannot do it without losing that which is most important, integrity. A person must stand for the truth even if it means loss of a job or prestige or scorn and rejection by those who call him friend. Tell Bill the word is integrity. Yes, that's the word. How very much we need to hear it, believe it, live by it. Not success, not popularity, not position, but integrity. The word means uprightness. That's the way the Creator intended that mankind should walk upright, not only in physical structure, but more precisely in our spiritual and moral structure. We're not only to live with truth, but we are also to live by it. What the world needs today is not more people of wealth, not even more people of wisdom. What the world needs today is more people of integrity, people who are willing to plant their feet solidly on the truth and refuse to budge even when faced by the temptations of the world. Yes, we need people, big people, people of solid character, people who will not compromise with less than truth, people who will not retreat from the very best they know. The word is integrity. Please pass the word.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, Focus on the Family's Gary Schneeberger will tell us about the documentary Truth Rising and the call to faithfulness at this crucial moment in time.
We are at this civilizational moment. We see the things that have held our civilization together being increasingly sort of dismantled by powers in the culture.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on AFR.
Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Psalm 139, 23, and 24.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and Fred. Promise to let Wesley talk this half hour, people. Those who are waiting. Huh?
Yeah.
Anything you want to say, Wesley, right now? The floor is yours.
No, I'm just looking forward to having Abe on.
Yeah. Well, we do have Abe on, and I'm sure Abe will talk. That's why we invited him on. Abraham Hamilton III, host of the Hamilton Corner on American Family Radio, joins us right now. That's afternoons, 5 to 6 o'clock Central Time. Good morning, Abe.
Good morning.
Abe, want to ask you a couple things. First of all, we've been talking here about the military campaign being carried out in Iran, and the reasons for the actions that President Trump and the Israelis, Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis took here in a, I guess you could call it a sort of, I don't know if it's a preemptive strike for Israel when the Iranians have been paying and have attacked Israel already, and they've been paying their proxies to attack Israel, for decades now. So I don't know if you call that a preemptive attack, but getting the Americans involved here. But what is your view on this whole? You think it's legitimate or illegitimate?
Yeah, based on the information that we have and what has been communicated from the administration,
right.
If the things that they've communicated
right.
are true, and I have no reason to think that they're not true,
right?
Then I would say that the attacks are legitimate. When you have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Constitutional, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and even like this, man, sometimes I really, really hate politics because you have this show vote concerning the War Powers. They call it the War Powers Act, but it's technically the War Powers Resolution. That's the name of it. It was passed in 1973 over President Nixon's veto at the time. But the resolution itself grants the president 60 days, which could be even 90 days, to initiate a strike anywhere in the world. They simply have to notify Congress within 48 hours of the initial action taken, which the president has done. And they have the capacity of 60 days straight up, and then the president has the capacity to extend that another 30 days before having any formal action from Congress. And the reason why I said politics, really, I hate it sometimes, because many of these exact same people, when Barack Obama struck Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, these same people literally said the president didn't have to come to Congress to ask for permission to do anything. But just because you have another president in office in a different party, now some of these exact same people are saying the exact opposite of what they've said previously. And it's just one of those things that when we have our servicemen and women in harm's way attempting to serve our country's interests, it's not the time to play politics. But some of these people see no end to playing politics, even when literal lives are on the line.
Okay, so when the American people elect a president, we're also electing a commander-in-chief.
Yes.
Commander-in-chief being, he's the number one guy in the United States military.
Yes.
All right, not Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, not Secretary of State. Whoever is the president, be it Barack Obama or Donald Trump, is the commander-in-chief. And so the commander-in-chief has to make calls sometimes to use our military around the world, as Barack Obama did, as Bill Clinton did in Serbia, I think it was. And if someone is going to say that every time that happens, the President of the United States has to go to Congress to get approval, Wow. Okay, then that's going to inform our enemies what's about to happen as we debate it in Congress.
Every time.
Every time. So there's a reason you can't tie the hands of the president. And I wouldn't want to tie the hands of the president if he were a Democrat to exercise. Furthermore, a president understands Donald Trump or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or George Bush or whoever the case may be. They understand the gravity of the situation. They understand because they're going to be held accountable by the American people in the elections and maybe other ways. If, in fact, they are lying about the reasons for going to war, or they are, because they are putting, as President Trump said, they're putting our men and women who are our sons and daughters, they're putting them in harm's way. It better be for a constitutional cause and a cause that's worth defending for the, for the betterment of our country, for the defense of our country, for the greater good, maybe I guess I should say. So you're saying these people that are coming against President Trump saying he's violated the War Powers Act of 1973 are only doing it for political reasons because they hate Donald Trump.
Yes, they are, because these are some of the exact same people
right.
who had no problems with Joe Biden's open border policy, in which lots of Iranians came into the United States of America via our southern border. These people are and I don't know every single one of them, but the ones I've seen speaking publicly about it, these people are playing politics.
Yeah.
They
Nancy
are not.
Pelosi is one of them.
Yeah.
And Chuck Schumer and the others. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, isn't it true that this War Powers Resolution from 1973, it is clear when people say, I saw a clip with Sonny Hoskins, I think, on The View, saying this.
I love her.
Oh, yes, she's a joy.
On The View, she's
Joy
just a ray of
joy. Sunshine.
You got Sonny and you got Joy.
Sonny and Joy.
It's in the intellect.
I don't think people go there for that.
I've got the intellectual dynamite there on that stage.
Yeah.
I don't know. We only wish we could compare it to. Go ahead.
Listen, they are a joy to
yes,
listen.
They are. Go ahead. I'm sorry,
absolutely, the complete opposite. But anyway, she says this is an illegal war. Okay,
illegal.
And it was illegal, and people always want to say only. And I think she said this. Only Congress has the right. Under the Constitution.
Who said this?
To declare war. I was pretty sure. There were several others jumping in, but I think it was Sonny Hoskins.
Yes.
But it is true that with this 1973 resolution that Congress has delegated to the Commander-in-Chief the flexibility to commit U.S. troops for a short period of time. So while it is technically true that only Congress has the constitutional right to declare war, what they did in 1973 was to give the president the flexibility to initiate military conflict. Do I have the legalities right on that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Section 5 is pretty explicit in saying that. It's pretty clear. And when you have things like, we already had Operation Midnight Hammer, right? That transpired. Well, you have Special Envoy Witkoff, who stated on the record on national television that when they attempted to negotiate with the Iranians, day one of the negotiations included the Iranians saying, hey, by the way, we have 460 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, and we believe adopting our language, they adopted language from our declaration saying, we believe we have an inalienable right to enrich uranium as much as we want. And we have enough right now for 11 nuclear bombs. You know, and in the negotiations, and Speaker Mike Johnson was in a press conference this morning, and he said this. I reported this on the Hamilton Corner 2 nights ago. Speaker Johnson said it this morning. The United States of America offered Iran free nuclear fuel forever, in exchange for them to get rid of their homicidal, maniacal penchant for destruction of weapons. And you know what the Iranians said? They said, no, thank you. Why would they reject nuclear fuel if they want uranium for purely civilian usage purposes? Why would they decline the United States of America giving that to them for life, for free, unless they have bad intentions? And so, as Secretary Rubio said, we learned that there was going to be a strike because Israel cannot abide a nuclear armed and not just nuclear armed, massively weaponized Iran, and there was going to be a strike. And we knew that if there was going to be the strike, the Iranians were going to try to kill Americans immediately in the reprisal. If that information is true, what other choice does the president have if they know all of it?
Right. This situation where the Democrats would, if they had any sense of fair-mindedness, would follow what like John Fetterman has done and said, listen, I don't agree with President Trump on everything. In fact, I have a lot of disagreements with him. But in this case, I commend him because he did the right thing to protect the American people. And he said, I do stand with Israel, the Fetterman said. All right. You know, when you have a panel made up of Joy, Sonny, and Whoopi.
Whoopi.
Am I right?
I think is it what?
Whoopi.
No, it's Whoopi.
Okay. I think Tim is making a point here.
Yeah.
Joy, Sonny,
and Whoopi. And they're bringing it.
Yeah.
Every day. Huh? All right. We look forward to hearing you this afternoon, Abe. Okay.
Oh, well.
You there?
Thank you. I'm here. I'm here.
Okay.
Hey, you go ahead and use that if you want to on your show. Joy, Sonny, and Whoopi.
Yeah. Next up. And our next guest are Sonny, Joy, and Whoopi. They'll be bringing us some smooth jazz. All right. Thank you, Abe. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Okay. All right. That's Abraham Hamilton III. You want to listen to Abe fly solo? Then this afternoon, tune in 5 to 6 o'clock Central Time right here on American Family Radio.
He brings it.
Yeah. All right, Wesley, what do you hear? Wesley, you follow the conservative podcasting world.
Yeah.
The influencers, I'm saying.
Those in between 30 and 40, 50.
Yeah. The people that your generation listen to.
That's right.
You young people.
You young people.
Ed,
By the way, I've got
Ed
back
Fred,
pain,
and me, we just get the remote and hit the channel. Okay, that we won't. We don't go down.
When you say channel, what do you mean?
Okay, well, see what I'm talking about? There's a little difference between us here in our generational.
Like
channel.
Like a water channel, like a creek channel? No.
Okay.
All right.
I know you're mocking me. But when you're mocking me, you're mocking all these other people.
It's 3-1 right now. I got it.
These other baby boomers
and
too.
you're mocking your mother.
I'll step back.
Yeah, mom.
That's
his
where
mom.
you should draw the line.
And probably 2/3 of our audience.
Right. She likes the channel flipper too. That's all we need. We don't need any internet there.
Yeah, flipper.
Yeah, whatever. All right. So my question to you is, in all seriousness, I mentioned some of the popular podcasters and influencers in the conservative world, with Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly or Candace Owens.
Yeah.
So those are just three. There are probably 20 that make up.
That's right.
Ben Shapiro. You listen to Stephen Crowder,
Benny Thompson, Matt Walsh.
Matt Walsh. So I'm asking you, in that world, is it divided in our Iranian war effort, or what?
I'll answer that two different ways. So yes, the short answer, it is a little bit divided. I will say this though, in particular with Candace Owens directly, and I would even at this point say Tucker Carlson, there has been quite the shift over the last year and a half or two in their politics on issues like this and others, to the point where they have lost a lot of credibility anyways leading up to this. And so
especially in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk.
Right. Yep, that's exactly right. Especially with Candace Owens.
Yeah.
And then and then there was there was a couple articles that were popular that was trending and going around during Candace's comments against Erica Kirk, and these articles are going around with Candace particularly, and don't let me forget the question, I'll come back to that, but and her particularly, where you could see she has a track record of continuously being fired and being in lawsuits, and you could see that she at one point she was a lefty, and then she became a conservative. I guess what I'm saying, with her track record, if you've looked at it in the great detail, you aren't quite as surprised at the way that she's behaving now based on her past. Although for those that wouldn't know of her past, it would surprise you. But nonetheless, with someone like her and Tucker Carlson, their issues with Israel and the United States have been going on for quite a while. So their reaction to this, while it is wrong, it may not be as surprising for those that are aware of it now. But now the divide, I would say kind of divided, but I wouldn't even say, I should take that back on the divided side. I would say more so like wait and see. They're neutral. they're saying, like, obviously, I would actually say they would be probably closer to the Fetterman side of things.
You mean most of the influencers in the conservative podcast world?
That's right, and then of course, let me have a little fun here. We also have our own in our conservative podcasting world that are pro-Trump, regardless of whether he's right or wrong.
Yeah,
and so we have our side of the what do you call it, Trump derangement, but not syndrome.
The other way.
That's the other way.
Whatever he does is sacred.
Trump supports
syndrome.
Yeah. So we have our 2 or 3 on our side. Nonetheless, I do think the overwhelming majority of those 20 would be either neutral. Let's wait and see.
Yeah.
Their biggest concern right now for the ones that are neutral is they're just holding their breath. Please don't nation build and put boots in the ground for 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to.
And I don't think he is either.
Right.
But they would also say it hadn't stopped yet either. So let's wait and
That's true. All right, Fred. What else you got? Happy?
I'm done for the day though. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
That was good. I knew you followed that world, and a lot of our listeners follow that.
Sure.
Some of those podcasters. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, we've talked about the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was the first of the leaders taken out last Saturday. He has been in charge in Iran for decades. Really, he's been around.
I think since 1989.
1989. I think it's okay to call him a mass murderer because he carried out the execution of, 30,000 Iranians just in recent weeks? You may find it hard to believe, but there are imams right here in Dearborn, Michigan. They basically had a funeral service for him the other day, eulogizing him, saying what a great man he was. I want you to play you a little bit. I was shocked about this yesterday when this story first broke. Cut number 7.
As a teacher, as a leader, for decades and decades of absolute service in educating people with wisdom and with work and with worship, and then end your life after 86 years with Shahada? Wow.
And I also offer my congratulations on this ultimate honor that he received after 86 years of jihad in the way of Allah. Then I appreciate our sisters, especially those sisters who brought small children so that our children would grow up with this culture where we remember our martyrs and we're not ashamed of them.
That's in Dearborn, Michigan?
That's in Dearborn, Michigan. We talked to Robert Spencer, the director of Jihad Watch, about this. He's not surprised that we have imams in this country who praise this guy, who honor this guy, and think he did wonderful things. Cut number 8.
Back 10, 15 years ago, he and I were on the Sean Hannity show together several times, arguing about Islam, and he was claiming that Islam was peace. But he is, of course, a deceptive Shiite cleric, and so he's been eulogizing Khamenei, saying that he was killed by the most wretched hands on earth, and praising his so-called martyrdom. This has to be understood that this isn't really a matter of freedom of religion because Islamic law is political. And it's not just political, but it's supremacist, violent, aggressive, and expansionist. These people are really agents of a foreign power that's hostile to the United States. And that's how they should be treated.
Yeah, he was referring to debating this imam from Dearborn, Michigan.
Yeah.
But there you have it. And there's a lot of concern about what's going on right now in this country with more and more Muslims, more and more attempts. Of course, in Dearborn, Michigan, the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan is a Muslim. And now we hear in North Carolina, Texas, all of these sorts of things. We're seeing Islam making a very wide footprint in this country right now. And people like Robert Spencer are saying, there's a warning here, folks. Better pay attention to it, especially when you have these imams praising this guy who was just taken out by our military.
On American Family News, our website that goes alongside of American Family Radio, with the news that you hear at the top of the hour, folks, of our listeners here for AFR. These stories and many others are put on afn.net. There's a a really sad story related to this. The title of it, if you go and read it, it's eye-opening. Iran's horrified doctors and nurses recount the regime's hospital horrors. This is in the wake of the suppression of the protests in that country. And what this Ayatollah Khomeini did and ordered. And check this out, folks, afn.net. I don't care what this
is before the war.
This is before the war, but it was within the last, 6 weeks.
Treating their own people.
The way they treated their own people. And so to lionize this man and to applaud him, Khomeini I'm talking about, as some sort of a hero to his own people, I think most of the Iranian people would disagree with it, even if the people in Dearborn, Michigan, the Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, might agree with it.
By the way, we put a call in to the governor of Michigan's office, Gretchen Whitmer. We want her comments on this.
Yeah.
That she has in her state people who say this terrorist leader in Iran was an honorable person. We'd like her to comment on it. We haven't heard back from her office yet.
Yeah. Well, you won't.
You're listening to today's issues on American Family Radio. Ed, I want to ask you, down through history, you've had anti-Semitism, which by that, for the people who don't know what that means, hatred for the Jews. Okay. Why did Adolf Hitler hate the Jews? And does that have any relationship to why the Iranian leadership and some people on the right in America, on the left too, hate the Jews? I mean, is this some kind of supernatural thing, or have the Jews done something to draw this kind of vitriol against them? That's a loaded, big question.
Yeah,
I know.
It is.
So if you got an hour, you got about 35 minutes to answer.
35 minutes.
Yeah.
Look. First, if we remember the dispersion, the diaspora, which just means a dispersion, can be dispersion of any people, but the dispersion of the Jews when the Roman armies conquered Jerusalem.
We have to go back that far, really, don't we?
We're talking about 70 A.D. There was still another rebellion on the part of the Jews in 135 A.D. Okay, so the Jews get dispersed. They don't have a homeland, and they were able to preserve, many of them were able to preserve their cultural identity and some of their religious beliefs, and they became... And I was just reading a book on this, on the origins of anti-Semitism and totalitarianism in Europe. The Jews throughout the history of the Western civilization in Europe, they really did become bankers and successful businessmen and women. And they were able to preserve their heritage because without a country, they had to solidify their community ties. They became known by kings all throughout history, especially in the Middle Ages, as those who ran a lot of the banks, and they would loan money to this king or that king when they had to do this work or go to war. And I think that is where their reputation of controlling the economics of the world, it wasn't the world, it was Europe, that reputation developed. And it was not, it wasn't a fantasy, it wasn't a myth. This was a reality, but it was how the Jews survived. Because nobody would go after them because they didn't belong, they weren't French. So you could be a German prince or a German king and go to Jewish bankers and get money for a war. You didn't have to worry about them because they were not going to be allied to a particular nation. And so this idea of the Jews controlling a lot of the economics in Europe was a real thing, and people understood that. and Hitler began to assign them blame for the rise of communism and the harsh treaty imposed, the Treaty of Versailles against Germany in the end of World War I. So
Hitler blamed the Jews for the economic depression that the German people were experiencing post-World War I, and that's the reason he convinced a lot of the people to hate the Jews and to kill 6 million of them.
Yeah, and it wasn't that they were running governments.
Right.
They were bankers.
Right.
And had a lot of wealth, and they received the blame for that's a real thing. We're almost out of time. I'll tell you what I was reading on this. It was from a Jewish writer. And
we'll be back.
We'll get that after the break.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. Stay with us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
Do you know the largest unpaid and untrained workforce in America? It's not in a factory or an office. It's the 65 million family caregivers. And if that is you, I understand the journey you're on.
Peter Rosenberger has been a caregiver for 4 decades. He's the host for Hope for the Caregiver, Saturday mornings at 7 Central on AFR.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Wesley. The U.S. is ramping up strikes against Iran amid questions about the country's leadership. Trey Yinks reporting from Tel Aviv.
The Iranian regime is down 86% in their ballistic missile launching capabilities since day one of Operation Fury. Still, the Israelis are taking some incoming fire. We've seen interceptions overhead here in Tel Aviv, but the Israelis are also going on the offensive, striking new targets around the capital of Tehran and going after many of the air defense systems that are left near to the Iranian capital. With the war ongoing, there are now questions swirling in Iran about who's leading the country right now, with much of the leadership taken out in American and Israeli strikes. One name, Murtaza Khamenei, the son of the Ayatollah who was killed over the weekend, is said to be the man who will ultimately get the nod.
Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, outlines the next steps the military will take in Iran.
We will now begin to expand inland, striking progressively deeper into Iranian territory and creating additional freedom of maneuver for U.S. forces.
The federal government has been partially shut down for more than 2 weeks as lawmakers are set to vote again on funding for the Department of Homeland Security. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise of Louisiana calls for Democrats to stop blocking funding for the agency.
It is time for their dangerous games to end. Democrats need to vote with us tomorrow to reopen the Department of Homeland Security to make sure that our basic mission as members of Congress to keep Americans safe continues.
Minnesota's Governor Tim Walz and Attorney General Keith Ellison appearing before the House Oversight Committee today to answer questions about fraud in the state. Federal prosecutors have charged multiple people with stealing from multiple state-run programs. Committee Chair James Comer accusing both Walz and Ellison of knowing about the fraud allegations far earlier than previously thought.
We have spoken with over 30 whistleblowers, many of them current employees and Democrats, who say they were ignored, retaliated against, and even surveilled for raising concerns. Instead of protecting the whistleblowers, the Walz administration protected the system that enabled the fraud.
An organization of pediatricians is urging more child specialists to join the fight against the gender mutilation of minors.
The American College of Pediatricians, or ACPEDS, believes children should not be given medications or have surgeries to help them with gender dysphoria. To help share its views and to recruit others, ACPEDS has produced a video called Doctor Heal Thyself, Restoring Evidence-Based Pediatric Care. Jill Simons is Executive Director of ACPEDS.
You know, this has to stop. We have to put an end to harming children this way. And the fastest way this stops is if doctors just simply stop prescribing these hormones, if they stop doing these surgeries, you know, it stops today. We all know there's been a lawsuit. There's more lawsuits pending. There's legislation being introduced, and that is all good, and that will end this. But it takes a lot of time, and and it can be reversed if, other people get into office or other cases. So we know that showing the doctors to lead in this and to heal our profession and stop doing this is the fastest and most lasting way to ensure that children are protected and this no longer continues.
I'm Chris Woodward.
And finally, there's an encouraging reading on the job market. Jenny Cazzola reports.
Job creation by private employers bounced back last month. Payroll processing company ADP says private sector employment increased by 63,000 in February. Pay is up 4.5% for the year. ADP's chief economist, Dr. Neela Richardson, says she's seeing an increase in hiring and pay gains remain solid, especially for people staying in their jobs. The premium pay for switching jobs hit a record low in February. Construction, education, and health services employers were hiring last month, and small businesses added jobs. The ADP report is not considered a preview of the monthly employment report, which will be released on Friday.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
The loss of a child through abortion, miscarriage, or stillbirth affects the emotional health of families. Feelings of anger, sadness, and regret can be overwhelming. There is hope and healing in the aftermath of a reproductive loss. Call the International Helpline at 866-482-LIFE to talk with someone who has been where you are and healed to help others. Your call is confidential. 866-482-LIFE.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. I'm Tim with Ed and Wesley. Last names are not important. Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Mine is, apparently.
Middle names are important. And if your name is Paisley,
that's right.
There you go. So you're listening to Today's Issues here on the American Family Radio Network. Yes, Ed.
Well, I just wanted to, I promised before the break we were almost out of time.
You did promise, and I keep that promise.
I was trying to explain some of the origins of anti-Semitism in Europe and in the wider West now, talking about the history of the Jewish people in Europe after they were, settled there. But I in case someone thinks I was making that up about Jews, not largely, but it being very influential in banking in Europe, and this kind of slander that they control the money and therefore run the governments around the world. This was from Hannah Arendt. I've been reading a book she wrote, Origins of Totalitarianism, and she's long been dead. I think she died in the 70s, but she was a German and Jewish historian and political scientist, philosopher, one of the probably most influential thinkers of the last century. But she was laying out the history of her own people in Europe and how the idea kind of sprang up that the Jews control the money and thus they are in charge of governing the world. And the kind of anti-Semitism we have today, I think largely still flows from some of that kind of ethnic slander of the Jews. But Hannah Arendt, Arendt, if you can find some of her books, the paperbacks are still available, but I managed to find a very reasonably priced hardcover. But it's a fascinating history of the Jews in Europe and how that resulted in Hitler and Stalin's and some of the others' anti-Semitism.
All right, Steve, go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Steve.
Well, while you guys were talking about war and while the world is trying to figure itself out, Texas had their primaries yesterday. And so in November, every House seat is up for election, and one of the Senate seats in Texas is up for election. And there was a runoff. There was the primaries. Democrats voted for Democrats. Republicans voted for Republicans. And they had some interesting results. So in the Senate, the Republican Senate was a hotly contested affair. We had the current Texas Senator John Cornyn was running against Ken Paxton, who's a longtime politician in Texas, but has come up with quite some baggage in the last year or so. And the third candidate was Wesley Hunt, a conservative, a good one, but he is out of the running. There is a runoff for these two between John Cornyn and Ken Paxton. They're headed for a runoff. And they are, at this point, it's pretty close, but John Cornyn had a little bit of a lead, a momentum, which is good news, I think. I don't think that the Republicans were looking forward to trying to defend Ken Paxton and his baggage.
You just gave your own personal opinion, Steve, and that doesn't reflect ours necessarily.
Well,
I know this is an awkward moment.
No, I'm not trying to opinionate. I'm trying to say that this is what I've. Okay.
You said you said that it's good because Paxton has baggage.
I'm saying that,
and Cornyn doesn't.
I'm saying that that's what I'm reading out there. It's not. I haven't verified.
That's Trump saying. Some people say.
Okay.
You're not helping the awkward moment.
Okay, let me just set it straight, and then Steve can move on.
Yeah.
Steve has a right to his opinion.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that people. Yes, Ken Paxton did. The Attorney General of Texas did have baggage, marital problems that he had. That.
I wasn't going to get specific.
Well, everybody knows this.
Yeah.
It came into play here, and he and the first politician to experience this. But anyway, it's a close situation, and some people don't like Cornyn because they think he's establishment guy, not conservative enough. So they voted for Paxton, even though they would have had problems with his personal life.
Right.
So it's a so anyway, it was a tie, right? And now
within a point.
And now they're going to have a runoff.
Yes, within a point. Yeah.
Okay, so that's coming up. What happened on the Democrat side, Steve?
That was pretty interesting because Jasmine Crockett, who is a current congresswoman from Texas, she's the one that is quite. She's kind of a squad type. Everything is racial with her, and she was running against James Tallarico, who is being billed as the moderate. And he has won the race. Jasmine Crockett lost the race. It was
pretty significantly,
53 to 46, basically. And now James Tallarico has been quoted. He uses his faith a lot, but he is so far from an Orthodox faith. He believes in abortion. He believes in gay marriage, and he tries to use Scripture to justify all of these things. So I wouldn't call him a moderate, but James Tallarico is going to be running in the November election against whoever wins the runoff between Cornyn and...
What happens now to Jasmine Crockett, because she gave up her House seat to run for Senate, right?
She did give up her House seat, and she is now out of politics, which means I'm sure she'll be hitting the circuit.
She'll be on MS Now.
MS Now.
You go, Wesley, go.
It's just frustrating. We need Democrats like her to win more because it helps us out. Yeah. It really does.
I will say this. I think Tallarico's a real threat in this
That's
Senate
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and Jasmine's less of one.
Yeah.
She's more of a clown.
Yeah, it's a good way of putting it because her views are clownish. Her behavior sometimes is clownish.
Right.
It's easy to mock it.
She's gone.
Like
out.
I know,
but out of the picture.
But what Wesley's saying is, if you're a conservative and you believe in the real
people
Jesus,
like her.
Yes.
yeah, and what the Bible actually says. The reason I say James Tallarico is a threat is because I've watched him. He's very articulate. He thinks quick on his feet.
What does he do now? What's his job now? Is he a representative or something? Or?
I don't know.
He is. Well, I'll have to check that.
Okay.
But and he talks Christianese. And this is going to be difficult for even a lot of Bible-believing Christians to sift through.
These bigger cities, too.
Yeah, in these bigger cities.
Like Dallas and
I think he could be a real threat to win a Senate.
Either Paxton or Cornyn?
I think so. I haven't seen initial polls.
Also, the Republicans are
Tallarico is a member of the Texas House of Representatives.
Okay, so he's a state
legislator. And also in this race, Tallarico did very well with the Latino vote. He's not Latino, but we have a cut here of Aaron McGuire, a political consultant, who says that Tallarico did well with Latinos, and the Republicans should watch out because he could siphon off quite a few Latino votes. They're not taken for granted in Texas anymore, cut 13.
There's a lot of big stories coming out right now out of last night's election, and one of them is going to be the Latino vote in Texas. That's really what propelled James Tallarico over Jasmine Crockett. And Jasmine Crockett is set to likely, this will likely be the end of her political career as we know it. She had to not run in the primary for her House seat, so I imagine you'll see her leftist nonsense all over the news going forward, including her election denialism here. But that Latino vote you see in Texas is going to be a key indicator going not only into the runoff for Republicans, but also into the general election. This is a base that moved quite frequently. You saw a big move in the 2024 election for those Latino voters toward Republicans. And are we going to see that pendulum swing back? With this runoff coming in May, you will see what is going to continue to be one of the most expensive primary in U.S. history. All eyes on Texas.
Well, if the Republicans lose that Senate seat, that would be a big blow because Texas is still a red state.
Would that not also be a surprise as well?
Yeah, it would be. It would be an upset. I understand what Ed's saying. I don't disagree that it'll probably be close, and this James Tallarico is a formidable opponent for either Paxton or
Cornyn,
whoever wins that runoff there. And they were in a dead heat, those two guys. So I hope they don't. Well, I don't. Anyway, I was going to say I hope those two don't just
destroy each other.
Yeah, slice and dice. But I mean, that's going to happen. That they're going to go anyway. All right, go ahead, Steve.
Dan Crenshaw, just to finish up, Dan Crenshaw, who has left the MAGA tent a while ago, he lost his primary, so he's not going to be in there. On the other side, if you're a baseball fan, Mark Teixeira, former Major League Baseball player, he picked up he's going to be running for a seat in Texas.
Well, he's replacing Chip Roy.
Yes, thank you.
Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, very conservative guy. He's going to run for Attorney General, I think, of the state of Texas. So he's going to leave Washington and go to Austin. So anyway, next story, Steve.
All right. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was at the Senate yesterday, and she was answering questions about ICE and things still, the Democrats still upset a little bit about that. And I wanted to play you a couple of clips. Let's start with this one. Senator Chris Coons thought he had maybe a little gotcha moment when he asked her, would you please pledge that you're not going to put ICE or Border Patrol agents in polling places? Like, we don't want you to do that. And listen to her response, cut 15.
Steve Bannon, long an advisor to the president, one of his earliest public supporters, recently said that ICE should be deployed at the polls in the next election. Will you rule out the deployment of ICE or CBP to polling places this November?
There are no plans to have ICE officers at our polling locations. And
I'm glad to hear that, but would you rule it out? Would you say it will not happen?
Do you plan on illegal aliens voting in our elections, Senator?
I do not. In
okay,
fact,
then
the
there should be
Heritage
no need to, unless you plan on illegal aliens voting.
Okay, well,
that's a great answer.
She picked up the dart and threw it right back at him.
Right. And got him right between the eyes.
Got him right between the eyes, and then he started to quote the Heritage Foundation, which the liberals hate them, but that's a conservative think tank in Washington. But well, good for her. You know, the Kristi Noem there, she's the Homeland Security. What am I saying?
Secretary of Homeland Security.
Yeah, I mean that's a cabinet level position. I mean, and President Trump has stuck by her, despite the fact she's been under siege from the Democrats in particular, and the left wing media, and they've called her Ice Barbie from day one. And I would say these left-wing groups who call her Ice Barbie and the news media, if it were a Democrat woman who was running the agency, you think they would call her Barbie? No,
it's very disrespectful.
Right. It'd be a feminist, sexist attack.
Right.
And so, but the Democrats and the liberal media are fine with demeaning her in that way. Listen, she's had to defend the agency primarily because we had these two killings in Minnesota and in Minneapolis that got, everybody knows about those. Those two people lost their lives, and those actions are still being investigated as to what led up to that. We do know that those two people who died were shot, and they had been physically confronting ICE agents. That's why they were out there. They were trying to prevent ICE from doing their jobs, to put their bodies between whoever ICE was going after. And I've not understood that part of the. I know we're going to get off on this, but and Wesley, feel free to comment. Steve, Ed. What the people that are, it's one thing to have an opinion about ICE's actions, I guess, but it's another thing to, I'm gonna go out there today and I'm gonna find me an ICE agent or two and I'm gonna spit in their face. I'm gonna get between them. I'm gonna call them the pigs that they are, and so I get in my car and that's what I'm off to do.
Yeah.
Why? What motivates that? Because what if ICE is going after a child molester or a rapist, or a drug dealer or somebody involved in human trafficking? You're going to prevent ICE, Wesley? You really want to go prevent ICE from arresting those people, getting them off the streets? What's the motivation here?
Well, the ones that you're referring to that are going to that degree are radicalized, I believe. Now, I will say this though: there are a lot of people in the Democrat Party that have not quite made that connection yet. But here's why I know that. I saw a video the other day of a man on the street, and he was walking through D.C., and then he was presenting himself as getting petition names to get those that were deported to come back. That was his position. And he said, basically, went around to 15, 20 people in Washington, D.C. He was like, hey, I'm trying to get those that were deported back to the United States, illegal immigrants that were deported back. Would you sign this petition for me? And they began signing it. And as they were signing it, he said, also, I'd like to make you aware of this, just so you know. He had actual illegal immigrants with actual names, with actual criminal records, and he began to read them off. And in each video, they would pause as they were signing the signature. They would say, "Well, if he's been convicted for murder, we don't want that." And then so there was this ongoing. Right. They were just as surprised that they had a criminal record and associating with bringing them now. If they've already made it over, we'll just leave them there, Yeah. And then one of them that said, there was a couple that said, well, absolutely deserves a second chance, blah, blah, blah. Then he said, well, that's great, because the next question I have is we're looking for a place for them to stay when they get back.
Oh, man.
And he asked them, would they host them at their home? And at that point, even the person that said bring them back was like, well, not at my home. And so my point is, I was surprised to see how many people were still associating ICE with deporting families that have been here for 10 years that are just
for no reason at all.
Yes.
Just willy-nilly because they don't like them.
Because they just don't like them.
Yeah.
And so there is still a bit of I would say at this point, purposeful ignorance, not wanting to know the answer. There is still that on the other side that's just...
So that is, if you can find that, give it to Brent Creeley, our producer here, and we'll put it on our Today's Issues Facebook page. Yeah. But that, actions speak louder than words. That is genius for somebody to say, would you sign my petition so that we can get all the people who are deported by the Trump administration?
That's right.
Can we bring them back to the U.S.? Yeah. And they start signing it, and then you say, oh, by the way, they are a convicted murderer.
A rapist.
One was a drug dealer.
A sex offender.
And then, so I can imagine that person signing it, getting halfway through their name going,
wait on him.
Wait just a minute. I'm signing to bring who back? Or he did what? That proves the point.
Proves the point, yeah.
Proves the point.
Well, also, because I have seen other videos too. I don't know if you've seen these where someone will come with the camera and microphones and all that, and with a group of people, they get off a bus and they go to a house. Have you guys seen these? And they say, hey, I understand that you signed something and about supporting illegal immigrants who have been deported.
We brought them to your home.
We brought them to your home, and they're all like, "Oh no, no, no,
not here!"
And shutting the door. I think a lot of Americans they're not deep thinkers. I'm not saying we are.
Let's go with this issue for sure.
They watch Joy, Sonny, and Whoopi.
I'm saying,
then Joy, Sonny, Whoopi, and Cushion.
They're on their phones. And they're getting bits and pieces, and they make decisions based on social media. And they're not digging down into who's actually getting deported and why.
They're having an emotional reaction.
Now, let me rarely be critical, though, of the Trump administration. I do think that on this issue, they could do a lot better job of communicating what they're doing and the process and the steps in which they're doing. I still am very aggravated that we have not yet to have. And if you've seen this, stop, say no, it's happened, and I'll say I'm wrong. Then I've yet to see a thorough. I'm talking about a 45-minute hour press conference with predominantly individuals that are being deported in their criminal record, and the ones that are like as they're being toted out. Like that's the kind of communication and I would expect
that's public relations
for
the Trump administration.
I agree with that totally. I think
this issue,
some of that is the liberal news media don't want to cover that.
That's true.
They want to because they want to have the Trump administration blamed so that it hurts them in the midterms. I'm talking about the liberal news media and the Democrats. They don't care that you arrested 5 murderers.
That's right.
They only care that maybe you detain one person who's not guilty or not as guilty as you say they are, and then they say, see what ICE is doing? They're arresting fathers of kindergartners who were on their way to a soccer game.
And they pulled them and they left the child by themselves.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve.
To that point,
which point, Steve? My point or Wesley's
all yours point, but yours particularly,
okay,
Tim.
Thank you. I'm not looking for.
No, we know you're not.
I'm not looking for attention.
For praise.
I just wanted to know whose point you were.
Or adulation.
Kristi Noem and Senator Dick Durbin had an interaction. It was a little more calm than the ones we've had before. But Dick Durbin rolled out this 85% of ICE arrests are for people who don't have a criminal record. And Kristi Noem set him straight on this point. Cut 14.
Let me ask you about the fact that 85% of the 400,000 immigrants that ICE arrested during President Trump's first term in office had no violent criminal record. The president said over and over at his rallies, we're going after the worst of the worst, the terrorists, the murderers, the rapists. And then it turns out that 85% of the people you've gone after have no criminal history whatsoever. How do you explain that?
Sir, when you talk about violent crimes, what you're saying, the crimes that don't matter, that you aren't counting, are ones that affect American families every single day. You're not counting DUIs. You're not counting embezzlements. You're not counting theft and drug trafficking and proliferating that. So if you don't count those as crimes, that these individuals and impacting families in this country.
They are counted, and they calculate 14% of those that
those are not counted in your 14%. If you were counting crimes that these illegal aliens in this country have committed, it would be well over 65 to 70% of the individuals that are detained today have those crimes on their record, besides the crime of being in this country illegally.
Going to back that up with some information for me?
Absolutely, I will.
I certainly hope you will.
Well, Ice Barbie didn't come to play patty cake.
You're not calling her Barbie.
I'm not.
That's the liberal news.
That's probably what Democrats continue to. By the way, Democrats have started drifting towards a kind of hatred for women, at least when it comes to transgenders playing in women's sports. This is almost completely looped back around to saying women don't count. And so I'm not sure the Democratic Party can claim to support women when they insult women in power just because they're conservative, talking about calling Kristi Noem Ice Barbie, and the transgender issue.
It proves that ideology is more important than gender.
Yeah.
In this case, because they're criticizing her not because the traditional feminists from the left side was support women at all costs.
Yeah.
And now if they have a different ideology, then we can't.
Why are they calling her Ice Barbie? Because I'm just saying, relatively speaking, Kristi Noem is a beautiful lady, and she wears makeup, and her hair looks good. It's not cut off like a man's hair, and these are the kind of women that they don't like, especially if they're conservative.
Conservative, yep.
Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure.
We're out of time.
Kind of like Chick-fil-A.
Huh?
My pleasure.
My pleasure.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's what they say every time, right?
You can't get them to not say it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Wesley.
You're welcome.
Ed, thank you.
Absolutely.
As always. And I like your attitude and your spirit, too, Ed. I really do.
Thank you, Tim.
Today
means a lot to
I
me.
would say today on this show, you were a bright, shining star.
That burned out towards the end of the program.
Well, but you shone for,
brightly
I don't know,
for a while.
an hour and 28 minutes. You were there for
And
it.
thanks for that 5 minutes I had left to explain anti-Semitism.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we're out of time, and we thank you for yours, and we will see you back here tomorrow. Keep listening to AFR.